I am gonna tonight try and do a qualifying run for the World Puzzle League Tetris World Championship qualifier. Um, I've got John and Andrew with me, who are going to commentate while I do it. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello. Oh,
Oh, all right. We've got a problem. Give me a second.
you're saying that's all right.
It's on.
Yeah, it's not responding to the controller though, sadly. Come on.
It's okay. Just a few technical issues.
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves.
So today's stream is kindly sponsored by DC Neil. DC Neil, the person who makes the videos.
Yeah, very famous Hearthstone streamer, I believe. Never watched any of his content myself, but I've heard he's all right. Yeah. Oh, and shout out to our second sponsor, Bristol Bot Builders. Check out their shop at bbb.gd/shop. Again, they are the best place to get robot combat parts. That's robot combat parts for all those of you out there who are building combat-orientated robots.
It's a surprisingly transferable skill in 2020. So at the moment, Phil's personal best is displayed in big old numbers on the right-hand side of the screen now, which is 344,461. I repeat that, that's 344,461, and we want some big
Sorry,
cheers.
can we get that one more time?
Sorry, that would be 344,461. As the chat is nicely reminding us, remember to yell Tetris at your TV screen and take a nice drink of whatever beverage you have. Okay, cool. So Phil now has control over the game again.
Hopefully forever.
And there's a little celebration going on there.
Let's go.
So, I think Phil's going to do a short demonstration on warm-up on a lower level to give us a little bit more of a taste of what's going on. And then once we've done that, we will start the hour period.
So yeah, I think it's going to be really fun, this. I'm looking forward to this. John, are you looking forward to it?
I am. I think, yeah, it's a really exciting thing to watch because it's a scene that's big enough that there's a lot of competition and a lot of characters, but small enough that it's genuinely realistic for Phil to get into proper tournaments and be able to compete at a pretty high level, which is a really, exciting combination and makes it fun to cheer on. So, yeah. There are a few differences as well between this particular original version of Tetris from the Nintendo Entertainment System and the one that you might be familiar with, having played different. So the key differences about this one are, firstly, and really interestingly, is that it features true randomization, whereas most modern versions of Tetris, the 7 Tetris blocks you can see on the left-hand side, will be cycled through in some kind of order. So you might, every 7, for example, you will get an I block, an L block, an S block, an O block, a Z block, a J block, and a T block. On this version of Tetris, it's completely random. And this actually adds an extra element of difficulty because you could be waiting for 10, 20, 30 moves for that I block that you need to complete a Tetris. And it also means that you need to plan ahead in a much more difficult way. You can see 1 block ahead in the next section on the screen. And then again, some more modern versions of Tetris, you can see up to 5 ahead potentially, or even more than that on some versions. And then there are a few more under the hood technical changes. There is no hold in this version of Tetris. So again, in some versions of Tetris, you can bank 1 piece and be able to use it later. Whereas in this particular Tetris, you just have to rely on what that randomizer is giving you.
Yeah, you get what you're given. You get what you're given, don't you?
Exactly. So yes, in many senses, it is the purest version of the game. And then there are also some things to do with the delayed auto shifter and the way that the inputs work that if we get really nerdy later, I can explain and talk about. But we won't go into the intricacies of Tetris frame buffers right now, unless there's massive demand for that.
I think it's just
Andy, if you could
WPL
begin to sing the ceremonial Tetris opening song, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, so as everybody knows, the Tetris opening song is usually performed using a sousaphone, accompanied with a glockenspiel. Unfortunately, in our sort of like lockdown settings, I've left them in the office for today. and also I can't play either of those instruments, and I don't own them. So yeah, but we can try and replicate. John, do you want to take the sousaphone or the glockenspiel noises? Which one do you want to take? Oh, he's gone.
It's got to be glockenspiel for me.
Okay, so if you do the glockenspiel parts, and I'll do the sousaphone parts of the opening Tetris national anthem. And if you could all please cover your left eye with your right hand as we sort of like go about this merry jig.
Cool. So you begin.
So left eye covered with your right hand.
I'm doing it.
Yeah, I can see. That's good. That's good. Boom, 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 boom.
I think we should stop this now and let Phil get on with becoming the Tetris World Champion.
We are all set, ready to go. Phil, best of luck to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Cool. So the other thing to remember is that pace needed thing on the right-hand side there. We're on level 12 here, so the scoring's slightly lower than it would be on a higher level, but it's still a rough indication that in order to try and achieve the target of 400,000, you need to be getting about 100,000 points every 33 lines. Now, once we reach 130 lines on the level that Phil was originally intending, or slightly higher on this level 12, the game will begin to run faster. Okay, so Phil's needs to do a little bit of recovery here to start clearing some of these lines to get back into the game for the double lag here. Is it time to mention the age-old rivalry between DAS and hyper tapping?
Yes. So once again, I'll let you fill in the details later on about the difference between DAS and hyper tapping. All I'll merely say is that they are two different techniques of playing the game Tetris. So obviously DAS is the technique that Phil is using, and hyper tapping is one of the sort of like the slightly more complicated, tricky methods that never really saw much popularity, but recently has been taking the world by storm. But what most people don't know is that this DAS versus hyper tapping sort of conundrum has been lasting aeons, and I mean generational divides have happened because of this difference between DAS and hyper tapping. It's a feud that has lasted millennia. Okay, it's sort of like it harkens back to many ancient civilizations, most famously the Atlanteans. So the Atlanteans were famous for hyper tapping, whereas the Greeks were a DAS based system, and obviously a great war was fought, and that's actually why Atlantis was sunk in the great battle of the DAS versus hyper tapping, and that's why hyper tapping sort of went into remission for a many number of years until it was sort of like very recently uncovered. Boom, Tetris for Phil.
It's often been thought of as, yes, a hubristic technique, one where you really take the heart of the Tetris into your own hands. So
lovely pieces in play. We're getting ourselves set up. Oh, that's a lovely two-line clear. Oh, and there's two-line clear again. We're going to get down to this, though. We're getting to a nice setup. We're getting a nice setup here. He's feeling the rhythm now. He's warmed up. He's settled in. And like again. John, perchance, do you know what sort of food Phil's had today in preparation? Because obviously we all know the diet of Tetris people is absolutely vital. So what
well, the
diet
most important part of this is that you can just make out in the stream image there is a bottle of Club Mate, Germany's favorite mate-based soft drink, which has been powering Phil through many a spicy endeavor.
Score of 64,000. It's looking lovely. It's going to be a lovely, lovely evening. We're going to see a lovely bit of cricket coming up here as he's set up for another Tetris. We'll just wait and see how long this drought is. For this eye block, and there it is. Can he get in position? And boom! Tetris for Phil. There's a boom. Boomtown. Again, setting up again. We're set up, positioned perfectly now for another Tetris. Fill in those blocks, and here it is. Boom, Tetris for Phil. Boom, Tetris for Phil. Oh, that's a double boomer right there. You don't see many of those these days, not until you're on the pro circuit, which is why this boy is ready for nationals. Now into the minty toothpaste stage, also known as Aqua Fresh, with the red, white, and green. Okay, here we go. Level 14 now, really ranking up those points. 186,000. we're getting ourselves set up for another lovely Tetris. Boom, Tetris for Phil. There it is, as he tucks in the O block immediately afterwards. Now the boy's feeling it. He tucks that piece in there. Oh, and it's looking very, very tasty at this position in time. Tucks another piece in. Boom, Tetris for Phil. Again, leaving that one blind lingering at the bottom with that single hole, which he couldn't clear from before. We call that the mole, okay? Famous from the Italian scene, Molly Flagelpants, I think was the name. The name kind of escapes me at this point because I'm so jacked up with this hype. Oh, a bit of a bad placement there on one of those pieces. We should be able to sort it out, though. Okay, as we squeeze it into position. Squeezing it in. Oh, takes me back to a young Gustav Henderson, one of the sort of the fabled early players of Tetris, back in sort of late 1991 was when Gustav Henderson burst onto the scene, displaying great technique in level 12, sort of very, very good. Boom, Tetris for Phil once again. Yeah, Gustav Henderson, famous for always playing using chopsticks on the controller. Like I said, that was his preferred technique. Allowed him to get really, really finite control. Oh, boom, Tetris for Phil. There we go, ready to clear out the mole. Looking good, looking juicy. Ready to go.
Cool, so we're definitely playing defensively now. As you can see, that score is quite a bit higher at this point than it was at the same point on that previous top score run. That's because the Tetris efficiency has been slightly higher. In this,
much higher, yeah, much higher.
We need to go over to the stats department to get some exact numbers.
Yep, just waiting for them to come through
unfortunately,
now.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Cool, yeah, unfortunately all our stats do come through from CFAX. Tetris Facts are sponsored by CFAX, which unfortunately did go out of commission quite a number of years ago, falling foul to the cursed red button of the BBC. So unfortunately, until someone can boot up the CFAX servers, our stats will probably be quite delayed. I don't know what our contingency plan is now that CFAX has gone down. Massive oversight from our side. Apologies, everybody that's watching. But if anybody knows anybody at CFAX that could get the stats up and running, we would be most grateful.
Right, this could be the end here. This is looking bad for our hero. Yeah, that was the second highest score we just had, but in significantly less time than the highest score.
Much higher efficiency.
Yeah, or less lines, I should say. We don't measure things in time in Tetris Land.
Yes, because the Tetris Land is famous for being a non-time culture.
Yeah, it is beyond, outside of space and time.
Boom! Tetris for Phil. Again, yeah, that's because everyone that plays Tetris is a wizard, and wizards are obviously never late. We've now got
there are a few moles that need clearing here.
Yes, there's a two-headed mole on the left-hand side, which we call a diglet, okay, because it's slightly taller than your average mole, being 2 blocks high rather than 1. So we've got a diglet there on the bottom left-hand side of the screen.
Diglet, dig, but what we don't want is a trio.
No trios. Yeah, no trios in this game, please. So once again, looking like a good score. Bit in recovery mode. Few holes in there. Not quite Swiss cheesing it just yet. More like a pair of old socks that your granddad used to wear. The number of holes that they would have. Just a big toe poking out maybe every now and again. As we clear a few lines, getting ourselves a nice, decent score. Like you say, Mr. Brulin definitely starting to feel the rhythm a bit more. Feeling the heart of the blocks. Looking very good. And we're off. So yeah, at this point, I think it might be a good time to talk about the creator of Tetris. Do you believe, John? I think it might be a good time to talk about the creator of Tetris and where it sort of all came from.
Yeah, absolutely.
So do you want to start us off?
I'd love to, but unfortunately there's a little bit of background information about the nature of Tetris that we need to cover before we can really get into understanding the founder himself.
Boom, Tetris Phil. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. Yeah, what the origins of Tetris as an entity, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. Boom, Tetris Phil again. So yeah, obviously, boom, Tetris Phil. So obviously, we talked about the history of DAS and hypertapping, but obviously, DAS and hypertapping were never really sort of like linked to Tetris until obviously sort of like the mid to late 90s. So obviously, but the DAS and hypertapping technique was completely separate in time before, like we say, the early 90s. Before then, they had their separate path. That sort of like legendary status has to be bestowed to a little known region. Boom, Tetris for Phil. of the Outer Hebrides. So in the Outer Hebrides, ancient Neolithic civilizations, one of their famous things for doing was to
Dry
build
stone walls.
dry stone walls. Exactly right, build dry stone walls without a single hole, and then demolishing it, leaving no trace. That was the sort of the origination of sort of the idea of building things quickly out of blocks and then knocking them down without any repercussion.
So Tetris was originally conceived as a training mechanism for those people in the Outer Hebrides to be able to hone their skills of building these incredibly proficient and self-supporting stacks.
Looking very good here. Like I say. Closing in towards the last couple of runs that we'll be able to fit in this hour stint. Like I said,
When did the timer officially start?
So I think the timer officially started just under an hour ago. But like we said, these Tetris people are wizards, so they are never late. They finish exactly when they mean to. Unfortunately, the WPL, who don't care about your hands, are slightly more strict regulators of the timed dimension.
Do they operate on mastermind rules?
On mastermind rules, as if
I've
you
started,
started,
so
I'll finish. Great idea. Again, I don't know. Again, I would refer this fact to CFAX. But once again, we already know the situation of that, as in it's not working. I miss CFAX. Can we just say that? I like CFAX. It was incredibly janky, but
I can remember waiting and waiting and waiting until the right thing came up and then not being able to read it quickly enough and having to wait another few minutes while it cycled back round again.
Yeah, definitely. It was fantastic.
It had cinema listings. I remember.
Yeah. Had cinema listings.
Cinema listings.
I remember, obviously, the days before, like Sky Sports, like we used to sit there and just refresh CFAX to see if there was a football update, to see if the score has changed. It's like the least reliable method when we literally had a radio that we could listen to, but somehow refreshing CFAX was more enjoyable than listening to the radio for that. But yeah.
We've got ourselves a little Diglett and a Doug trio in the stack now. Looking like we're going to potentially top out full on into recovery mode. At what point do you just burn your bridges, cut your losses, and move on? Apparently,
I think that was it. I think that was that.
Line 8.
Yeah, I think we got a massive drought waiting for that Tetris, and it just meant that we were sort of like unsalvageable. With a couple of gaps in there, like I say, looking like a bouncer who's had a few too many brawls with drunk people, a few knocked out teeth. And here we go. We're setting up again. So we slot this in there perfectly. So we're ready for something almost as historic as the unveiling of the Eiffel Tower. Here we go. Yes. Exactly. Yes, there's some people even try and train their bodies at level 18. Like I say, it's a really good position to train your body and your mind to think faster, to think smarter, to think sharper.
Yep, there have been scientific studies that have shown that playing Tetris can increase neuroplasticity and cause your neural pathways to reform in ways that are beneficial to cognitive ability. So it's interesting. So we're going for level 15. So this is an interesting middle ground between level 12, which Phil has been on for most of the time, and level 18 that we just went up to. Some competitive play takes place at level 15 as well, and this is considered the sort of lower end of the highest level competitive play in Tetris. We are now Tetris ready on level 15. We've got that eye block and we're shoving it in there. That is excellent.
Someone in chat making the classic misconception of Tetris called Tetris because of each of the block that represents one letter. Actually, classic misconception. People think that, but the actual origination of the name Tetris comes from they're all the first letters of the creator's pets. So we famously, for obviously having 6 pets, all which are different starting letter of their name for forming the word Tetris. That's where the name actually does come from. Here we go. Setting up again. At this point, Phil is wishing he had Spike Two Thumbs McGee dexterity of having 2 thumbs on one of his hands to really be able to set up that Daz within sublime efficiency. Boom! Tetris for Phil. Here we go. That's a play Spike would have been proud of. Here we go. Setting them up. Knocking them in. Good swivel. Boom! Tetris for Phil. There we go. 68,000 points. 69,000 points. Here we go, getting things set up. Looking happy, looking primed. Nice, single line clear to get his Tetris primed with that follow-up block. Looking really, really delicious. Looking really delicious. Boom, Tetris fulfill once more. 86,000 points at 30 lines deep. Double line clear. Looking good, playing at the bottom. No moles, no diglets, no crookshanks. No reverse crookshanks. Oh, placing those blocks. Slot in those pieces. Bubblegum's been his level this evening. 5 minutes to go. Big last 5 here, ladies and gentlemen. The clock is at 5. Big tick.
For anyone watching at home and thinking that this looks easy, I would say that you should go and download an emulator and give it a go and find out that it is actually way more difficult than this and that you probably suck almost as badly as I do.
Last attempt of the evening in official match play. Here we go. Last one. I've started, I'll finish. The Mastermind Tetris mode this is. Mastermind Tetris. If it gets too high, the inputs are just going to need to become too quick. This drought has been massive. This drought has been absolutely huge. This drought has been ridiculous. There's the final, and it's just too late. That drought was unbelievable. More arid than the Gobi Desert.
Have you been listening to our bullshit the whole time, Phil?
Yeah, I have actually.
There's your excuse.
There's been a fun thing of like, there's a thing of like,
delayed.
Occasionally John says something untrue and I get really distracted because I'm like, I want to correct you. And then occasionally Andy says something true and I get really distracted because I'm surprised. Other than that, it's been good.
This is good. This is good.
I think I've been mostly factually accurate.
I think you've been really on it.
I've been mostly factually inaccurate. I'm excited. I'm excited. This has been a good fun run.
It's not looking good. All right, that's GG. I think. Sadly.
Top bombing, buddy. Top bombing. Top bombing. Oh.
Cool.
What did we hit? Was it 220,000? Was that the best we had this evening?
226, which is
464. 226, 464.
not ideal. Let's face it, but
226.
it's alright.